All right, we're going live in three, two, one. Hello, folks, and welcome to the Dire Literary Series. And we've vaulted into the month of November, and uh, welcome. And we are very pleased to have our special guest, Diana Spechler. Now, this is going to be like great because there is so much, there are so many good things in her bio. So if you guys can kind of read along and read along at home, look at these credits. They're just absolutely wonderful. New York Times, National Geographic, Washington Post, Guardian, GQ, Harper's. It's kind of like that thing that you see online, like the three words that you see first. That's what you are. Like there's so many great publications, Plowshares, uh, 7-time Moth Story Slam winner. Um, there's great stuff. And of course, there are books that can be clicked on. There we go. There are books that can be purchased at her favorite bookstore. Of course, you guys are looking at a wonderful white screen, but oh, there they are. There's a book. This is named after me, Skinny, and the next one is the next one is named after join this conversation. But anyway, you can find out all this stuff at dianaspechler.com. And so it's wonderful to have you, and get started anytime you want.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's really cool to be here, and it's cool to see so many faces when I know there is a lot going on in the world and a lot of other things that could be taking your attention right now. So I'm very appreciative. And I think I know what I said before, but I think I am actually going to read from that short story that that I wrote at the beginning of COVID. I was solicited to be part of a series of COVID erotica, and that could be interpreted however we wanted. So that's what I'm going to read from. It was published on the Evergreen Review, so I'm not obviously not going to finish it because I don't want to bore you to tears. I'm just going to read a little bit of it, and then if you want to read more, I can send the link in the chat. I have to warn you, it actually came out a little more romantic than pornographic, just social conditioning or whatever. But okay, it's called The Neighbor. When he knocks, I freeze on the hard wood, my nightgown tangling my legs. You all right? He asks. He is the neighbor who shares my wall. He has never before addressed me. Perhaps he's talking to himself or a friend on the phone or a resident of the building that faces our windows. Whenever something good happens, my brain says, "You're hallucinating." Did you fall? He asks, and I've often wondered if my neighbor could give me happiness. Not the occasional manias that lead me to purchase slutty corsets, but the rich, high thread count happiness wealthy men describe at their retirement parties. A happiness connected to their yachts and their grandchildren and the quality of their scotch. I clear my throat. The last time I spoke aloud was long ago and accidental. Caught in a dream, I woke myself up shouting, "Where have you been?" I did fall, I say. Normally, I resent interruptions to my acting because the flow is fragile. Threats to the flow include questions from strangers, my own sudden self-consciousness, meals, and other people's anxiety. But I effortlessly shift my priorities. I will protect not the flow, but the voice of my neighbor. He asks, "Do you need?" We aren't allowed to offer help anymore. Help is a hazard, like hugs. Without documents to prove our antibodies, we aren't even permitted to look at each other. Looking could lead to breathing. He asks, "Would you like me to call someone?" My heart rattles its cage. "Yes," I say. I recite my phone number. The walls are thin. Everyone in this city laments the thinness of their walls, but ours are so thin they violate building codes. In this city, no one cares about building codes. If you called a number and said, "I would like to report a building code violation," the operator would think you were a nerd. The wall between my neighbor and me is textured gray and blank like the brain of an infant. I have heard my neighbor inhale. I have heard him swallow coffee. I have smelled every ingredient he's ever sauteed. When a truck passes below, the wall rumbles. Before the disease, I also saw my neighbor sometimes. He looks like an American Olympian, relentlessly refreshed, strong hair, eyes like polished spoons. If you saw him, you would be proud of him, jiggling key in keyhole, bagel clamped between teeth, or just shampooed, crossed out by gym bag strap, or poking hand into mail slot. My neighbor is a man who regularly receives mail. Turns out talking on the phone with my neighbor is irritating. We hear each other through the wall first and then through the phone like an afterthought. So we hang up and embark on a wall talking relationship. My neighbor says he's never seen me. He asks, "Are you the one who wears all the eyeliner?" No, she lives above us. I've always been curious about her. I don't tell him that that's the point of eyeliner. I don't want to sound jealous. Are you the girl magician? Nope. Do you wear a long braid? Yes. I quickly braid my hair all the way to my hip. What color is it? I often wear wigs, I admit, but they feel unsafe now. Have you noticed that safe things now feel unsafe? He likely assumes wig wearers are bald, but I have plenty of silky hair. I am also pretty with symmetrical freckles, but my body language doesn't suit people. That's why I was alone long before the disease rendered everyone alone, and why I have several times been hired based on my pictures and fired an hour into my shift. They say people judge one another's looks, but that's imprecise. It's the language of the body that makes strangers think I am better off not knowing her. We all hold this truth in our nervous systems. That's why cell phones were invented, the human craving for safe uniformity. And now each person sits in the agreed upon body language, hand cupped, spine slumped like a dehydrated flower, finally at peace. Are you still dating that woman? I ask. Dating, he laughs. There's a throwback. Before the disease, I saw them together a few times, his fingertips gentle on her tailbone, her nose ring the tiniest silver speck. Which woman? The woman who once yelled at you that you were going to lose her, I say. I remember knowing right away that she had made the wrong threat. He would never feel her absence as loss, and deep down, all three of us knew it. Once a week, we snake prisoner woven ropes out our windows all the way to the sidewalk. An alleged person in a hazmat suit ties the base of the rope around a package. We pull up our groceries like fishermen. The groceries are leftovers the wealthy don't want, but Mayor News, the network critics call propaganda and defenders call the news, insists that the foods are in fact home cooked by the mayor's wife and then, to comfort us, lovingly repackaged as the same canned goods and boxed snacks we've known since childhood. There are millions of us and only one mayor's wife, but the mayor's defenders aren't daunted by logic. Today we get saltines, to which I'm allergic. I can leave my saltines in the hall for you, I offer. Come here, says my neighbor. I'm wedged between the refrigerator's lit up insides and open door. I watch the wall from a distance. I tuck the tiny ketchup bottle into the side pocket. I close the door, wash my hands. I'm waiting, he says. My skin aches like an empty stomach. I go to him. I press the cool gray wall with my palms and my cheek and the bottoms of my bare toes. I don't tell him I've done this before. Once when I heard him sing Johnny Cash in the shower, once when he received bad news by telephone. I can hear your heartbeat, I say. I'm touching it. I push all points of my body against the hard surface. Heat courses through it and into me, and I wobble a little, then apply more pressure. Feel my pulse, he says. I slide my hand up. It's the steadiest rhythm I've known in ages. The secret to a convincing fall is the roll. By rolling upon impact, you drag the fall out, make it look violent. If you can take a loud object down with you, a trash can, an end table, all the better. To roll safely, you must put your weight on your side, not on your spine. My love handles feel bruised, as though someone's been squeezing them. My neighbor says, I keep wondering if I've seen you in anything. I don't know how to respond to that. My jobs in the old days were acting adjacent, kissing booth kisser, dinner theater hostess, fairy dust sprinkler at little girls' tea parties. Acting is not my job in the capitalist sense, but I have an excellent French accent. I wear red lipstick and petticoats and call the mixologist barkeep, or I wear a short-haired wig and sit with my legs spread, snapping my suspenders. You've never even seen me in our hallway, I point out. But it would be cool if I'd watched you on Netflix while you were right next door. I would have knocked on the wall and told you, I say. I wouldn't have been able to help it. I receive only a couple of hints that our brains aren't in sync. Once in the middle of a conversation, he sighs heavily, and I imagine him rubbing his eyes with the heels of his hands. He says, it's nice to talk to someone. I say nothing. I think, who's someone? Another time he says, I would have preferred to meet when things didn't suck. And I flinch as though he's punched the wall. I'm so happy, I tell him. Aren't you happy? I don't ask the question aloud. I'll stop there. If you guys want to read the rest, I can send the link.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The rest is on
Here, I'll put it in the
Evergreen
chat.
Review, and it's called The Neighbor. So look that up, and it's a great story. So let's grill you a little bit here, Diana. Very often, fiction writers and poets, they get an idea and they go with it. Tell us a little bit about the first small cell that you had in your mind that developed into this story.
Well, the first thing was how would there be porn when no one can touch, right? That was sort of the challenge. And so that was how I came up with the wall. That was the beginning of it. And then the reason that I love this story and I loved writing this story is because I am a realist writer. It's what interests me when I read, when I write. I like realism. I like stories that could really happen in the real world. And what this totally surreal year has done for my writing is made it what would have previously been considered more surrealist or speculative. And it's allowed me to play in that space because it still feels realist to me. It's just that the world has become more surrealist. I mean, there's I really like Mexican culture. I lived in Mexico for 5 years and I like, Mexican art and everything. There's a Frida Kahlo, she did all her self-portraits from bed mostly. And people told her that her work was surrealist and it really bothered her. She said, no, this is my reality. My work is realist. And I always really liked that. And I think I had that in mind as I was writing this, that, yes, I want to write realism, but sometimes we have to adapt to a world that has stopped feeling real. And so it's been, all the nightmares that this year has provided. It's also been in some way a gift to my writing because it's allowed me a new kind of freedom. If that makes sense.
Sure. It also answered a question that was already on the chat, which is awesome. So out of all, as we mentioned when I looked at your bio, out of all of your credits, which one just really wowed you? Like, wow, I just got into.
I write somewhat regularly for the New York Times, and every time I feel like, I feel like 15-year-old Diana, like screaming, it's so exciting for me every single time. It doesn't hold.
Is that when you wanted to be a writer at age 15, or did you?
Oh no, I was born like this. Like I never wanted to do any other thing. I've been writing since I could pick up a pen. There are like pictures of me doing it as a very young child. And No, I always wanted to do it. I think it took a long time for me to know what that would mean or what that would look like, because of course the messaging that we get is that you can't really do something like that, or at least that's not a career, um, or a life. So, you know, at, at different stages, I imagined it differently, but I never wanted to do anything else.
So along with that, I know there's plenty of movies that depict writers as these massive, like larger than life figures. And I'm thinking of the movie Wonder Boys, where he walks up to the microphone at a reading and he says, first thing he says is, "I am a writer." So for you, when did that sink in and you realize that, hey, I'm a writer here?
It's such an interesting question because I think maybe you're asking it because you're asking about permission in general to call ourselves writers. Am I right about that? Because I
Sure.
get that question a lot from my students about like, when are we allowed to call ourselves writers? At what point, are you like, at what point have you crossed over and can claim it as an identity? And I don't know. I mean, I I feel sort of angry with myself when I think about, or compassionate for myself, maybe depending on my mood, when I think about the fact that it wasn't until I sold a book that I felt legitimized. And I think that's crazy because I'd been writing my entire life and I'd even been publishing prior to that. But because society treats you as legitimate once you have a book, um, I guess I bought into that and I was young and I just sort of believed it. And now in retrospect, I don't really feel that way. But I mean, I feel that I've always been a writer. I guess, if you want to be really technical, I became a professional writer when I started making money for my writing. I think I made money for my writing the first time in my early 20s. So I guess that's when I became a professional, but I don't know about like real writer. I think we can decide that for ourselves.
Now, you said that you have discussions with your students and they ask questions, and you've gone on and done a lot of reading. So this is a personal non-preference. What question do writers get asked that annoy you the most?
How much of your fiction is true is an annoying one. um, and where do you get your ideas, I think, is kind of an annoying one because I don't know how to answer those questions. uh, but I don't know, in general I like to be asked any question.
I mean, Adelaide earlier in our chat before you started talked about what do you do about someone that's going to automatically assume that what you're writing about is real and it's about you when in fact it's not.
Yeah, and I love that question, Adelaide, because it's so funny. I mean, I wrote fiction. I wrote primarily fiction for many years, and then I switched to nonfiction. And once I switched to nonfiction, now I do everything. But for a while, I was only writing nonfiction, and it was such a crazy experience because all of that hiding you can do in fiction, it was just over, when you write nonfiction. So I think I must have at some point let go of the concern, at least in a in a way that would stop me, because it did always bother me, like people are going to think this is me. But then I guess what I realized at some point was like, well, it is me. I mean, it's some version of me that's coming out in my fiction, because how could it not be? I mean, I'm the one making it up. Even though it feels sometimes like it's coming through me onto the page, it's obviously that's not true. It's actually from me. It's from my brain, my psychology, my experiences. And so I think at some point I must have just thought, oh well, people are going to think what they think. Um, and then I sort of had to face it even more head on when I started writing nonfiction.
Was there ever anything that you wanted to pull back in your nonfiction, like, oh no, I've revealed too much, or are you getting phone calls from various people and you just don't want to talk about it?
These are really good questions, Tim. So I think, yes, I there are definitely things that I would not put in my nonfiction, just because I think we all have a right to a private life, and there are certain things like I just haven't written about. But if I do choose to write about something, I do feel that we should commit to telling the whole story. If you're going to write about it, do it, you know? I guess there are just certain stories I'm not going to tell, at least not right now.
Well, in terms of writing the whole story, have you started something and then gotten stuck, or say like it's a story or a novel? What do you do when you're stuck on something and you know you want to finish it?
So how do you get unstuck?
Sure. How do you get unstuck?
Um, how do I get it? Okay, I mean, this is a topic I could talk about forever. I love creativity unblocking, but I think the first thing you have to find out is, why are you stuck? Are you stuck because you started writing a story without figuring out where it was going? So in that case, it's often that you haven't figured out the character's motivation. You haven't figured out what the character wanted, and if that happened, if you don't know what the character wants, your story will sputter out. So then you have to go back and think about that and probably start again. Or are you stuck because you just realized, oh shit, people are going to read this and I don't want them to know, ABC, whatever. In which case, that's like more of a psychological thing to sort out. So I would say that's the first step. And then if it's the former, there are technical things you can do, figuring out your character's motivation. If it's the latter, you can either stop and not do it because you don't, it's too private, you don't want it out there, or you can figure out what the fear is exactly, which I would recommend. What is the fear exactly? Are you going to hurt someone with your story? Are you afraid somebody in particular is going to see you in a way you don't want to be seen? Are you afraid that, I don't know, that your secrets are going to come out, or that you're going to expose someone else's secret? You have to figure out what it is. And then I would recommend kind of following that concern all the way to its possible conclusions. So what if you did hurt this person? So what if these people did see you differently? Um, so what if your parents find out that you're a sexual being? So what if your boss finds out that you don't love your job? Like, what would happen? Are there actual consequences, and can you deal with them?
All right, so moving on a little bit, who have you studied under that became a major influence, or that you just learned so much from?
Oh wow. I mean, I'm so grateful to everyone who taught me. I really, like, I think back, when I was just kind of like writing these little stories that weren't any good and didn't make sense, and I'm just like so grateful to all of those professors from those days who treated my work like literature because it was their job. And I just think, they were doing God's work. And I'm really glad to be giving that back. I mean, I teach now and I love it. I love working with writers. And I'm very happy to meet people wherever they are, whether they're beginners or further along. I would say, though, that my influences are different from those who taught and encouraged me. I mean, I think there are certain writers that I know I can read to get in the mood to write, and those aren't necessarily the same people under whom I trained. So some examples of that, actually, it kind of changes all the time, but some examples of that would be Amy Bender. She kind of always gets me in the mood. John likes her. I see some thumbs up. Um, Joy Williams, Sheila Heti, Curtis Sittenfeld. Uh, oh gosh, there are so many.
Are there any people that you've taught that have moved on in impressive ways, or even consulted on a manuscript? And if not, who do you think might be up and coming?
Oh, I have lots of students who have gone on to have great careers, and I always. I mean, I see talent in a lot of my students. Actually, one of my students who's very talented is in here right now, I think, or I saw her earlier. Um, so let me see, who have I taught? Okay, I can't take credit for this, but Juan Felipe Herrera was my student before he became poet laureate. He was my student in a prose class, but come on, that's like my biggest connection to fame I think I have.
Well, you never know what people take away from anything, correct?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. He's such a doll. He was great.
Now you're working on a memoir now. Is it finished, or tell us a little bit about it?
Well, I wrote a memoir and then I haven't looked at it in about a year, which was why I was about to pull it out and then I kind of chickened out. Um, it's a story of like a train wreck. It's like a train wreck love story. It covers 1 year of my life and a relationship that I had with a telenovela actor in Mexico.
That sounds interesting. So you consider that, so you're chickened out. You consider that you're stuck on it, or you just don't want to look at it again? Is it sort of like an out of sight, out of mind thing?
It's because you said you were putting this on YouTube. If it had really just been, us 12, I would have done it. But I think that's what made me chicken out, to be honest.
All right. So tell us about, you also do manuscript consultations. What levels do you work with? Like, where's your sweet spot there?
Oh, yeah. People come to me for all kinds of stuff. So it could be like feedback on a whole book, or something as small as like a pitch letter. So and anything in between. So yeah, I actually prefer that. I think working one-on-one is kind of like where I can be the most helpful. So it could be anything from, people want help with structural stuff to nitty gritty, like they want help making the sentences sound more elegant or whatever.
And they can find you and contact you for that service through your website, or?
Oh yeah, for sure. I can also put my email in the chat.
Okay, that sounds great. And if I will not put your email on YouTube because otherwise
I appreciate that.
you'll get these emails that'll be like, "Hey, I'm on the other side of that wall." Huh?
No, we don't want that.
No, never. But you never know in society. It's good to be guarded. That's for 100% sure. I really want to thank you for coming on and reading for us, and a wonderful job you did answering those questions. So thank you so much.
You really asked me some awesome questions, Tim. So thank you. And I'm so grateful again to all of you who came to listen. So thank you so
All
much.
right. So now we're going to stop the stream on Facebook. If anyone that was on Facebook and wants to participate in the open mic, you're going to have to find the Zoom link and join us. Otherwise, see you later. And thanks for that. Thanks for viewing on that piece.